Welcome to the Trading Sliders Podcast. Here we go, special episode of the Trading Sliders Podcast. Tonight's version is Sports Talk with Bobby P. That's right, guys. It's basketball season. It's a crazy world how this all comes together, but we cover auto racing every week, slide jobs, crash of the week, everything that goes on in the dirt racing world we cover. For a lot of people out there, you know that I also have a passion for basketball. And when this opportunity came about, it's the Final Four week. It's Bracket Buster week. So we're going to get started. This week, special edition, Sports Talk with Bobby P, so to speak. Coach Scotty Davenport just hung up the whistle after 47 years of coaching high school and college basketball, and 46 of those was right here in the city of Louisville. So real special edition. This is one of those things that come about pretty quick. I've had people reach out and said, hey, we love what you guys do, and we would love for you to do other guests other than racing. And I said, there's only two things that I know, that is racing and basketball. So this whole thing kind of worked out. It happened awful quick. Yes, spontaneous show. Scotty Davenport agreed to sit down, and we have a deep dive interview, same as what we always do here on the Trading Sliders Podcast. But we're not talking about race cars. We're not talking about race car shops. But we are talking about the legacy that Scotty Davenport has left behind here in the city. I want to start off by thanking our sponsors, Diesel Boys LLC. Brandon Hooker and them, they take care of all your diesel truck automotive needs. Kentucky Clutch and Performance. Chris and the guys at Kentucky Clutch can help you out with anything you need clutch related, farm tractors, semi-trucks. Speed Decals, if you need any type of vinyl work, reach Walt on Facebook at Speed Decals. Walt, they will take care of anything you need vinyl work related. And if you have any handyman work that needs to be done around the house, reach out to D.O. Handyman and Remodeling, 812-989-5002. That's the guys that help us each and every week get up and down the road, and we greatly appreciate it because everything we try to do is in-house, in person. And this week's guest, Scotty Davenport, as he cleaned out his office, I would say we're probably the last interview that took place in the office, as it was just about bare. Scotty Davenport, for years and years, is the mainstay of the Louisville, Kentucky area. And, you know, it was an honor and a privilege to sit down with Scotty. And, you know, we talk about so much tradition here in the city of Louisville, and how he's been so blessed to be a part of molding young guys' lives, but more importantly, how he's been blessed to help the city, represent the city from the South End, and talk about how he's so blessed and, you know, his rich history of basketball here in the city of Louisville. 20 years he spent at Bellarmine, 426 career wins, 2022 ASUN tournament champion, 2011 Division II national champ, 4-time D2 Final Four finalist, a Kentucky High School state basketball champion, 6-time Great Lakes Conference championships, 5-time Great Lakes tournament champion, 4-time Great Lakes Coach of the Year, 47 years of coaching, molding young man, and 46 of them years were done right here in the city of Louisville, Kentucky. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to sit back, relax. This interview might bring you to tears, but it shows a different side of Coach that a lot of people don't get to see. But, guys, enjoy the interview with Coach Scotty Davenport. It's time for the Trading Sliders Deep Dives presented by Kentucky Clutch and Performance. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are on this week's Trading Sliders Deep Dive. Coach Scotty Davenport, I know that sounds weird coming from a podcast from a whole nother genre, but I really appreciate you coming on today.
I'm honored. I always am. I really am. And let's get right to it. You called me Scotty. That brings such a smile to my face. My mother called me Scotty. My sister called me Scotty. Everybody I grew up, I know you got South End roots because you just showed it. In my journey, I met my wife when I was coaching my first job ever at Aaron's High School, which is now where the Brown School is, 1978 to 1980. I'm the JV coach. She was a Sacred Heart grad. I told her the day I met her she was a GU, and I said that's geographically undesirable. And she said, I can't believe they call you Scotty. You sound like a little kid. I leave there and become the JV coach at Ballard, and I become Scott Davenport.
You're Scotty Davenport. That's it.
Then as my career goes on, we would laugh about it. People that grew up with me reference me as Scotty. People not. And then I'm at Ballard. I'm Scott Davenport because that was more sophisticated. So then I just became coach.
Yeah, that's
so
funny.
We'll start off getting real.
Well, that's funny you said that because I've always called you Scotty D. It was always Coach Scotty D. And I've had kids before. Scotty D. I'm like, that's Coach Davenport. Why do you call him Scotty? I'm like, I just always have.
Isn't that funny?
Like,
that's funny.
It's just what he's been to me.
Now we've talked about stuff nobody cares about.
Yeah, well, no. Coach, everybody cares about you. You spent 20 years at Bellarmine. You coached for 47 years. But 46 of those years were here in the great city of Louisville. But usually when I get started, I kind of ask a tough question. But I'm going to do this totally different. I just want to tell you thank you from someone that grew up in the South End, that loves the city, that loves basketball. Thank you for what you've done for our city, because I'm sure there was schools that called. I'm sure there was job opportunities, but you stayed true and you stayed real to the city of Louisville. So before we start any questions or anything, I just want to say thank you.
Well, I think the reason, the question is why? Why?
Yeah.
And I referenced coaching at Aaron's High School. In my opinion, it was the most segregated school institution at any level I'd ever been associated with. And I'm not talking about segregated based on race. It was segregated based on economics. The school, no matter their race, it was very impoverished.
Everyone, yeah.
Housing projects, low-income housing, everyone. My next job, 1980 to 83, I'm the JV coach at Ballard, the most affluent school.
Yeah, there's no issues there.
So I go from Aaron's, which I wouldn't change anything of coaching at Aaron's, to Ballard, the most affluent. I'm a JV coach under Don Salyer. During that tenure, becomes his best man in my wedding. And what's really ironic, as you fast forward, I coach at VCU under Mike Polio, Tubby Smith, and I are the assistant coaches on that staff, with a gentleman named Eddie Webb, who was a phenomenal basketball coach. And then, I'm a GA at Louisville under a Hall of Fame coach. Next thing you know, 10 years back at Ballard, but then the University of Louisville under two Hall of Fame coaches as a full-time staff member now, Coach Crum, Coach Patino. But the reason for this story is then Bellarmine. So I go from Aaron's to Ballard, one extreme to the other, very, very different. Louisville, private jets, five-star hotels, Maui. We go to the Final Four in 05. And then 05, 06, I'm at Bellarmine riding a bus 8.5 hours to play Rockhurst in Kansas City.
It comes full circle.
It's gone every step. Think of this. Five-star hotel, private jet, Maui. Now I'm on a bus going 8.5 hours to play Rockhurst at a Division II program. And that, to me, that's true coaching.
Yeah.
So if it's from Aaron's, the West End, Portland, Clarksdale Housing Project, growing up in the South End, going to Fraser Elementary, Southern Junior High, which back then it was junior high, not middle school, then Iroquois, then a walk-on JV player at Louisville, to Ballard, U of L, and then Bellarmine. And you say 47 years, and 46 of them in this community that, in my opinion, embraces all levels of good basketball better than any country, any community in the country.
Well, it's funny you say that because I've got friends of mine, now that I'm not coaching anymore, obviously I was never a Scotty Davenport by any means, but as I'm not coaching, I got friends of mine in southern Indiana, and it says, Indiana's a basketball state. I said, you guys may be a basketball state, but we're a basketball city. So that's...
It is a basketball state. It is an amazing basketball state. It is incredible.
But I tell them all the time, I said, we're just an extension of you guys. We bring the athleticism to your state, and it's just a joke and, back and forth. But one thing I want to say is when I coached, we had teams that always played in the South End shootout. And every time I went to Iroquois High School, as I pulled in, I would just smile. I said, man, there's Scotty's dome right there on the side of the building. I pulled in and I smiled because as for me and other coaches, I don't know if they've told you this. I don't know if people's told you this, but anytime I think of Scott Davenport, Scotty Davenport, Coach Davenport, whatever you want to go by, anytime I think of that, I think of he's one of us that made it. Was it easy? No, not by any means. But he's somebody that actually came from the city and decided, you know what, this is my home and I love this.
Bobby, I'll get real with you, and I'm at a point where emotions quite often take over. I was on a run, and I was 3/8 of a mile into my run, and my phone rang through my iPods.
Yeah.
And I ignored it, kept going, and I ran us now about past the half-mile mark. It rings again. I thought, well, I better answer this. And I do, and it was a very incredible phone call from the Kentucky Sports Commission. And they said, Coach, do we catch you at a bad time? There's several of us on this call. I said, no, I was on a run. I just know everything's okay. And this woman kind of took over the call logistically to inform me that I was being inducted into the Kentucky Athletic Hall of Fame. And I said, ma'am, can I call you back? And then Carl Schmidt, at that time, was the president of the Kentucky Sports Commission. He says, are you okay? I said, I have to call you back. And he goes, I understand. I can tell. So I finished the run. And I called him back, and they go, are you okay? And I said, I'm okay. And they go, well, let's talk about what this means. And they went on all the logistics and this and that. And I said, and they go, Coach, can we ask you why you're so emotional? I said, yes, you can. I said, I grew up 4 blocks from Freedom Hall. Snuck into Colonel's games. I snuck into Louisville Redbirds games, or Louisville Colonels, AAA baseball games, U of L football games, figure 8 racing, Fairgrounds golf course. I mean, we walked up there all the time. I laugh. People make fun of me. The beautiful L&N football stadium was a rail yard. That was a rail yard. That was L&N rail yard. So there's like 25 railroad tracks because that's where they changed everything. So my decision, walk up Central Avenue, walk through the rail yard, or go all the way down 3rd Street, over the Eastern Parkway overpass, and all the way back up Crittenden Drive. No, if I'm 12 years old, man, I'm going straight.
You got straight through the rail yard.
You just hope stepping through that train, it doesn't start moving when you're stepping through there. If my sons had done that at 12, I'd have killed them. So the reason I was so emotional, and the reason nobody anticipates a call like that, but those plaques, those brass plaques that...
Yeah, it's inside Freedom Hall.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd looked at those plaques since I was 12 years old. They called me in 2017, so I was 61 years old. And I'm thinking to myself, I already knew the answer. Nobody in that Hall of Fame lived closer to those plaques than I did.
Yeah, that's facts right there.
So I knew. I had idolized those plaques for 45 years. And to think I was getting that call. And they said, Coach, this is unbelievable. you have to tell this. I said, I don't have to tell anybody. And they go, well, why did it make so much? And when I was inducted, I said to them, if one person that grew up on Central Avenue lost her dad when they were 9, Halloween day, 1:15 in the afternoon on a Sunday, 15 feet from you. A mother from rural Kentucky, running her own business, raising 2 kids, lost an older brother, a younger sister at birth. If one person, you mentioned it, you pull an Iroquois and it says Scotty's Iroquois. If one person says, who is that? Oh, he did this, he did that. What if it gives them hope? Well, if he did that, maybe I can. It'll all be worth it.
It was worth it because, like I said, when I pull into that, I just look up and I'm like, man, that's one of us. So
I've got to give Jeff Morrill and Dr. Tall, the current principal at Iroquois, and Jeff Morrill, the basketball coach. I got to give them credit. They got me. So here's what happens. I get a call from Jeff in September. And he said, Coach, I really got a request. I want to line this out. But he said, it's like October 29th. We have an in-service day on a Monday. Could you come and present to our faculty? You went here. We admire you. You grew up here. It's in a very difficult time at Iroquois High School at this point. Very difficult. He said, could you come and help inspire these teachers, our principals, our administration, our counselors? I said, Jeff, I'd be honored. So as we go on, we get close. I'll never forget 2 weeks before, 2 Sundays before, I came and literally locked myself in my office. And I mean, man, I've got it lined out. I'm taking this really, and I'm not just pulling out my 5x8 card on the third speech back and using it again. Yeah. No, I'm going to speak from the heart. I make a call. I said, Jeff, do we have computer capabilities? Do we have a projection? Can we IT? Can we do that? He goes, yeah, we can do whatever you want. I said, I'll let you know. The next Sunday, lock myself in there again. I'm ready. I mean, I'm fine. And my wife is like, wow, you do 75, 100 of these a year. I said, no.
This one's different.
This is different. Yeah. I said, this is different. We come, and we have a group of individual instruction at 8:10 to 8:50. I'm here. We're doing all that. We have a group at 9 o'clock to 9:40. Or 9:40. I'm changing clothes, sprint out there, I go for 10 o'clock. I walk up, Coach Morrill standing right outside the gym, right where he told me to meet me. I'm like, ready to go. Let's go, Jeff. And I am laser focused. I'm going to walk in it. And I open the door of the lobby, and I look up, and there's my entire family. There's players I've played with at Iroquois. There's players I've coached along my journey. There's classmates, there's friends, and I'm looking around like, oh my gosh. And I'm oblivious. The principal talks, Jeff talks, and we all go outside, and it's right there. And they had it covered, but I didn't even look at it. And, and I'm losing it. And they unveil it, and my wife, she goes, it just took everything. You were so obsessed with this preparation to give this talk to the in-service to the professional development, and I knew all along what they were doing. But it was an unbelievable honor because, again, if somebody looks up there and says, who is that I look at every day in school? And in this day and age, they just Google a name and said, well, he went here.
Yeah.
He went here. We just had my 50th year high school reunion this past October 4th. And you can imagine what that night was like.
Yeah. Well, here's one thing. So when you mentioned, your route you took, I was going to say, for iconic names in the state of Kentucky, you've worked with 3 of them that has a pretty good, you've worked with a lot more, but you've worked with 3 of them that's left a pretty good legacy here in the state. How does Scotty Davenport, he makes first off, he went to state championship at Ballard. And I still, when you announced your retirement, I seen the little video clip and they said, this is the most unbelievable day in the world, which It was. And anybody that's played for a state tournament or been to a state tournament, it's incredible. But how does it, the roller coaster keep progressing? And then you work with Tubby Smith and you work with Coach Crum, who, goes down as one of the greatest coaches in the history. And then when Rick Pitino comes to Louisville, you're the only one that stays on staff. How does that roller coaster, how does that even happen?
Well, Bobby, and I'm going to give you credit that you did this on purpose, because you said I worked with. And I think that's why I've been so fortunate. I never took that as working for.
Yes.
And it's you mentioned Tubby and Mike Polio, but it goes all the way back. Estill Griffith's the first coach ever to hire me at Aaron's. But it goes all the way back, and obviously it's easy to get to Coach Crum, Coach Pitino. But what about a Bill Olson? What about a Tom Jurich, 2 ADs? The principal at Ballard, she passed away this past summer, Sandy Allen, the woman who took a shot on a guy that, had been a JV coach at 2 different schools, a graduate assistant, and boom, I'm the head coach at Ballard High School, only the third in the history of the school. You go back, and that's what you start asking yourself. Why were you so fortunate to coach with these type people? And I've left out Jerry Jones, who was a mentor in my life, a Wade Houston, a Bobby Dotson at Louisville. It goes on. And Jim Ruther, our athletic director at Ballard, was the hardest working man I've ever been around in my life. And you just go on and on and on. I get to Bellarmine, and Scott Wiegand was hired as an AD 1 year before I am. And then Dr. McGowan had a vision to take it from Bellarmine College to a university. And we tragically lose him in 2017, and Dr. Donovan then becomes our president. It never ends, and it goes on and on and on. But to give you an example is, and I was not a partier, I was not a drinker, I was not a fraternity guy. I'm just a student at the University of Louisville. And back then, there were really no student center to speak of. So, and I lived at home, because home was 4 blocks away on Central Avenue. I could just walk. Well, what are you going to do between classes? If you had a class at 9 and another class not till noon, so you got 9:50 to noon, what are you going to do? Just go see what's going on in the gym. Just walk around, hang out. Well, between 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock in Crawford Gym, I don't care if it had been Wes Hansel, Darrell Griffith, I don't care who it was. Nobody was playing in Crawford Gym between 12 and 1, but faculty, coaches, etc. They played every day. Nobody was playing. And there was only 10, 12, 13 of them play every day. And one day, I'm just hanging out. And they had 10 players, and one of the professors had to go give a makeup test or something. And this gentleman just turned to me and said, "Young man, you want to play?" Pull off a sweatshirt. I've got jeans on, Chuck Taylors, and I'll play. We'll just finish out the game. Comes up to me. "You play basketball?" I said, "Yes, sir. I played at Iroquois High School. I played for Coach Al Pfeffer." "What's your major here?" I tell him that. He goes, we have a JV team. I'm aware of that. 2 players I played with, Mike Carroll, Tim Markham, both have passed, but both played on that JV team as walk-ons. He goes, "Well, you'd be great. Why don't you go see Coach Jones and go see Mr. Bible and get a physical, and you ought to do that."
Like, okay.
Yes, sir. As fast as I can go. Well, that gentleman that said that day, and I literally played 10 minutes, was Bill Olson at the time, Coach Crum's top assistant, would go on and become the AD there. If you don't think that's impactful, that moment changed the rest of my life, with him asking me that. My oldest son, now the head coach at Bellarmine University, Doug Davenport, is named after Doug Olson, who played for me at Ballard. Doug Olson was named after Doug Lawrence, who played for Coach Olson at Westport. That's 3 Dougs, all played for the dad. And what if he doesn't say, hey, and then from the 2 years of JV, I got involved in helping around in the office. I got involved with recruiting, showing it, taking them around, doing this. Then I become a GA and working camps, and off we go. Think of that moment with a guy like a Bill Olson saying, "Son, where'd you play? Why don't you go see Coach Jones about our JV team?" That's it.
The rest is history.
I mean, my mother died in 2008, and she said just before she passed away, she said, if you really, really, really work hard, you might get a real job and make something out of yourself. And I always answer that as I sit here now, I've never had a job. By definition, a job is a vocation. I've had an advocation. I was an advocate for young people because from junior high school on, coaches were an advocate for me.
Yeah.
And I've lost teammates that I grew up with, and some of them made some bad life decisions. How come I didn't? The game of basketball. The one lesson, the most powerful lesson I've learned in coaching, 47 years. When you're a part of something bigger than you, it will bring out things in you that you never, ever, ever knew existed, because you don't want to miss out on what means so much to you. And that's my life right there. That's it.
When you come to Bellarmine, I remember when you first come to Bellarmine. I mean, Bellarmine was struggling. It was to be. I mean, we're sitting at the beautiful campus. It's one of my favorite places in the world to watch a basketball game. But I will go on record and say it was struggling to be nice. That's being politically correct. To take Bellarmine from what it was to a Division II powerhouse, to the 2011 championship, to all the kids that come through here. Louisville kids, Southern Indiana kids, I'm talking Keyston Jones, Chris Dow, Jeremy Kendall, Braden Hobbs. It just seemed like everything, when you say things happen for a reason, all that worked together for a reason. I remember when I first started coming to Bellarmine games, I was like, man, this place is so incredible, but there's nobody here.
No.
And then it kept rolling and kept rolling. And funny story before we get into that, my wife, the year you guys won the championship, so my wife and I, we've got season tickets. We're going to all the games. It's our birthday in February, and we go to IUS. We go
USI.
University of Southern Indiana. And I think you guys have won like 17, 18 in a row, and we're going down there, and it's our birthday. And so our birthday dinner is, I think we eat at the old Charlie's across from the arena, then we go to the game, and you guys lose, and we're coming home, and she goes, I don't know if we're ever going to travel again, because we done been to win. You lost 2 games that year, I think, and we went to University 3 games.
36-3.
Yeah, University and Indy was 1, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, because it was a road game. We were there for that one too. I was like, we can't go on the road no more.
Now I know who to blame. I'm not taking the blame.
Yeah. I was like, we can't go on the road no more. And then I remember you guys were playing at NKU, and I was like, we're going, and she goes, I don't know. I think we're a jinx. I'm like, they won all the home games. It can't be us. But it's a funny story. But way all those kids come together. That reminded me when you said, everybody, it's bigger than basketball. That was bigger than basketball, because that brought Bellarmine to the core.
It did.
And then you guys go and make the jump to D1, which we're going to talk about. All the basketball related stuff, but we want to talk about Scotty first. How proud was you, not only when you won the championship, but we went to 4 Final Fours. I mean, it was an incredible run. Did you ever just step back and say, how does this happen?
No, you're trying to do it again, but here's what's interesting about it. So in early February 2005, I get a call from a non-Bellarmine person, but a Bellarmine supporter, saying they're going to make a change. You really, really ought to look at that job. Well, when I was coaching at Ballard, the same person had reached out to me, and I got very frustrated because I didn't get the job. And the reason, all they kept bragging on the first time was how many, we've had, 85 applicants, and it really turned me down, because I'm like, that's because everybody in the world thinks they can coach at your school.
Yeah.
If Coach Crum quit tomorrow, there's not going to be 3 people apply because it's too hard.
Yeah.
But I didn't get the job. They went another direction after I jumped through all their hoops and all that. So I'm fine. I'm at Ballard. We're rolling. And then, now I'm at Louisville, and it's like, no, we're going to have this opening in this. And here's where it changed. The fact of our beliefs in what was important academically, athletically, and socially were exactly the same. Now I'm coaching under a soon-to-be Hall of Fame coach, second one. We just we're on our way to go to the Final Four. Why? I've got 2 degrees and 39 hours over my master's from U of L. Why am I going to leave there and go to a school that won 9 games? That doesn't make any sense. Except when I really did my diligence, they absolutely were aligned with me of what I thought was important academically, athletically, socially. Look at where we are now, 20 years later, how important those things are.
Yeah.
So I take the job, and what's ironic, Coach Pitino catches wind of it, and I said, Coach, let's worry about our team. We're on a great run here. We're not. No, Scott, and he became obsessed. We play our first 2 rounds in Nashville, then we go on to Albuquerque. And I'm the first one in there every morning to eat breakfast. I'm always there first. Here he comes. Scotty, I talked to this best friend of the president at Bellarmine and Dr. McCown. And Scotty, I did this. And Scotty, I says, Coach, we're trying to go to the Final Four. Let's focus on these kids. And he goes on and on and on and on and on. Like he won't let it go. Go to the Final Four. We get back. Scott Weekend calls me on a Wednesday night, offers me the job. It's over on Thursday. We're going to have a press conference Friday morning. I go in Thursday morning. I tell Coach, I said, Coach, I need 5 minutes. Yeah, come on. And I tell him. It's quite early, Thursday morning. I got the call Wednesday night. And he proceeds for 20 minutes to scream at me, I'm making the biggest mistake of my life. And I'm looking at him like, you have been preaching. His favorite line was, this will be like my Providence team with Billy Donovan, Delray Brooks. This is how those guys will be to you. They'll be your friends for life. They will be your soul. And I'm like, now I'm the dumbest guy ever lived to take this job. And I walk out and I go in my office, which is the only thing between my office and his was the conference room. And Kevin Willard's literally trailing me into the office. And he had a nickname. He had, congratulations, Kevin, just taking the job at Villanova. And Kevin goes, Podsy, how confused are you right now? And I looked at him, I said, Kevin. He sits down, he said, Scotty D, let me tell you something. Here's what happened. You'll never get a bigger compliment. And I looked at him, I said, Coach, Kevin, what are you talking about? Now, you got to understand, when Kevin came to Louisville in 2001, Kevin was 25 years old. Mick Cronin was 30. I was 45. So on that staff, Coach and I were, Coach is 3.5 years older than me. We were the 2 closest in age. And Kevin said, here's why you're confused. Now he knows he doesn't want to lose you. It's the greatest compliment you're ever going to have. He doesn't want to lose you. You're never going to get a better compliment. He's digested this whole season. He doesn't want to leave you. You got to go. We're going to all take you out this afternoon. We're going to have a ball. We're doing this. We're doing that. He goes, but I know you're confused right now. And that started it. But those players on that journey, my one consistent message was, I will push you harder than you've ever been pushed, mentally as well as physically. Academically, athletically, socially. But to be fair, outside of your parents, I will support you more than you've ever been supported. And that's what we built this program on.
And what a program it is. It's funny because I always, I come in the back way where the baseball fields are. That's the way I've come in every 3,000 times I've ever pulled in here. And when I first started coaching, I brought my kids over and we ran the hills. And there used to be a big tractor tire out behind the girls' softball, and we'd flip it over and stuff. And that was when Bellarmine was making their big run. And I had kids and we were running the hill and stuff. And I'd always say, hard work. You get out what you put in.
Oh,
it just is what it is. You get out what you put in. And when when you guys, because I know 3 or 4 times before you actually made the jump to D1, there was an opportunity. And I've seen you, I've heard you on radio shows and stuff saying, I don't know if we're ready yet. I don't know if we're ready yet. That's I want it to be fair to the kids. When you guys made the jump to Division I, how hard is that? To say, look, I'm bringing you guys in, but for 3 years, 4 years, you're not going to be able to compete. After the season is how tough was
we
that?
could do five podcasts on that. It's the hardest thing I've ever done as a coach, and here's the reason. One, they didn't ask for that, and I lost. I never fought any issue harder in my career than I did that, and for this reason. The adults make the decision. There's a huge financial commitment. There's a huge institutional commitment from a staffing standpoint. You've got to meet their criteria in terms of financial commitment, staffing commitment, academic commitment, resources for your athletic programs commitment. If you do all those things, that's all on the adults to either raise the money, do what they asked to do in terms of being committed to make the transition. Then why are you punishing the student athletes? Because all we hear is we're about what? Student athletes. Why? Now, I challenged them with everything I had. Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, was a huge, huge backer of getting this changed. There was leaders in the NCAA hierarchy who wouldn't even give the governor a response from written correspondence. Wouldn't even, on state stationery. I still have the letters. And then I gave up and I said, okay, I just want to do one thing. Come look these players in the eye like I do every day. And they wouldn't do it. I said, I'll pay, not Bellarmine. My wife, Sharon, and I will pay. I'll fly you here, bring your wife. I'll put you at the Omni. I'll take you to Pat's Steakhouse. I'll take care of you. I'm not doing this to Bellarmine. You just look the players and explain to them.
Why they can't participate.
And they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And that told me all I need to know. You know why, though? Here's what I learned. Those people all want better jobs, don't they?
Yes.
So those people, those power people above them, they want to please them versus the kids because it'll get them a better job. I learned a hard way. And I never understood it. Last year they changed it from 4 years to 3 years. Boy, that's big of you.
Yeah.
After the last 3 years making more changes than any time in the history of college basketball, we've made significant changes, all for what? The players. Everything's for the players. Why wouldn't you change this rule?
Because the way college basketball is going, this is going out the week of the Final Four, so this is the, especially for our area, this is the biggest, event of the year. But with college basketball going the way it is, with the transfer portal, with, the name, image, and likeness, as a guy that's been involved in the sport so long, where do you see the college basketball, our sport going in 5-10 years?
Well, let me close my battle with this one last statement. Usually it comes down to money. We weren't going to cost anybody any money. The ASUN is a great league, great administrator, our first commissioner, Ted Gumpert. When I was hired, now Mark Bacon, our commissioner's tremendous. Jeff Bacon, I'm sorry. If it's a one-bid league, we weren't going to keep anybody out of the tournament.
No, you're getting your one anyway.
It's a one-bid league. We weren't going to affect the SEC or the Big Ten or the ACC. We're a one-bid league. If they earn it, what is this country built on? You get what you earn. If they earn it, they should have that opportunity. That's how it's done. That's the real world. Instead, year 2022, we do something that's never been done in the history of college basketball. We run up the ramp of Freedom Hall because we're in the NIT. We were told that. And at 10 o'clock the next morning, we're not. And I had to look them in the eye. No one else.
Yeah.
And it ended in the fall of 24. No, excuse me, in September of 23. We had a new commissioner, came around to every campus, does a tremendous job, tremendous. And had one-on-one meetings, a lot of coaches. I had a one-on-one meeting with him, and we got to that point. And he said, before you start, they're changing the rule. And I said, they are? He said, yes. I just left a meeting 2 weeks ago in California. At the time, there was 32. Now there's 31 leagues. And before the Pac-12 went down, and all 32 leagues were there. And the new president of the NCAA said, I'm changing this rule. I said, that's unbelievable. All right. He goes, no, wait a minute. It's going to take 18 months of the legislative process before we change it. And I looked at him, and I opened my folder up, and I said, explain this to me then. And from June 23rd of 2023 was a whole page statement explanation of the NCAA making a change on the testing of marijuana at NCAA championship events. And in parentheses, it said this rule will be enacted immediately while the legislative process takes its time. I said, so you're telling me they can smoke dope, but they can't play in the NCAA tournament, and we can change this immediately? And he looked at me and said, they told me you were like this. I said, that's right, I am.
Yeah, welcome to the South End.
And I said, this meeting's over, and I walked out. Because I said, I got two seniors going to leave here with 5 degrees. One had 2 masters, one had a master's, and both had bachelors. 2 seniors, Alec Freeman, Garrett Tipton, 5 degrees. And you're going to tell them they can't play in the tournament, but now you're going to tell everybody in the NCAA at a championship event you can get high, and we're not going to test for that. Explain that to me. Impossible.
Yeah, that's
impossible. Again, we make changes. Because why? We're about the kids, but not this one.
Yeah, that's I remember when you were fighting that fight, and I don't know if it was Drew. I don't know what show you called in, but it was right after you spoke to somebody, and I said, "This is a different side of this is the coaching side of Scotty that everybody who's went on that road trip and seen that loss, they've seen that side of him." I said, "But Scotty is he's gonna die on this this."
But
this
if that
argument.
was your son, Bob, what would you want the coach to do?
Oh, I know. I'm with you 100%.
Right's right, wrong's wrong.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%.
I just didn't understand it. I will go to my grave never understanding it. The great thing was they think I'm such a jerk for doing it. They owe me an apology. John Bowl, who won, 100 and some odd Emmy Awards on a TV investigative reporter, begged me time and time again to let him go to Indianapolis with my 2 seniors and a camera on his shoulder and knock on doors until he gets an answer. He begged me. Because he was going to look at me in the eye and say, wait a minute, you're all about that student athletes.
Yeah.
He begged me, and I held him off. So they really think I'm a jerk. They should apologize to me.
Because they didn't get true Southend. They just got part of it. Because Scotty could have said, look, we're just all going to roll up here to Indianapolis.
I can't believe it.
Well, it's one of those things that when we say, college basketball, it's about the student athlete. That's their cop out for saying it's actually about the money, and we're just going to say that it's about the money. It's about TV revenue. It's about the athlete. It's about athletes, but it's not about students. that's what it's about. And with, like I said, the transfer portal and I agree some things needed to be changed a little bit, because if you get a situation where you got a sick family member and I get all that, and even if they wanted to say, hey, you got 1 free transfer. Kid goes across the country, homesick, this isn't for me, I understand that. But every year you can go to, to me, that goes against everything that we've taught, we've preached for years. So, kids, we had kids that couldn't afford shoes, and somebody gave them a pair of shoes and they had to sit out. They couldn't play basketball. And now we're just writing checks to them. How do we make that leap in college athletics?
Well, See, this is where I changed. I'm not going to be the old coach who says, this is bad. I'm not. I'm not going to say that NIL is bad. I'm not going to say that. I just want to know those decision makers' rationale on how this is good. That's all. Why? What justified this? What was your basis? Was it academic? Well, when you transfer, ours don't transfer. That's called retention. And we've had players leave this program. We had 3 starters leave last year with a day and a half to go in the portal. And one of them was taking freshman level business classes because he went to a very prestigious institution with a great school of business. So next year, his eligibility's up. He's going to still be back in school, trying to still get his undergraduate degree. Who's paying then? Who's paying then? He is. Yeah. This is not. Now, there's only 360 NBA players in the world. 360. 30% of them are international players. So, okay, now we're down to 240. Okay, you say, well, they're going overseas. Okay. Why don't we do this with a degree in our pocket? What about the player who's transferring 3 and 4 times now when he's 30 years old? What's he going to be doing? He's not going to be making a living playing basketball. And my concern's for the players. It's not about the money. My concern's about the players. And I would like to hear the rationale of why this was okay. For many, many years, the NCAA's stance was, here are our rules. If you don't like them, don't come. It's a voluntary organization. If you don't like them, there's Major League Baseball, there's the NFL, there's the NBA. Go. Here are our rules. It's a voluntary organization. You don't have to belong. And I'm not worried about. I'm going to give you an example, Bobby. I'm put you on a spot right here.
Yes, sir.
Pop quiz. This teacher and me coming out. Division I, Division II, Division III, male, female. How many athletes? Not NAIA, not JUCO. NCAA, Division I, II, III, male, female. How many athletes in the United States?
75,000.
75,000. In the last census of June of 24, 522,000. So what we just talk about, what are we really talking about?
A small portion.
Now, ultimately, I'm not being negative, but push is going to come to shove. And there, in my opinion, there are only 2 outcomes: loss of jobs, loss of sports.
Yeah.
So we're gonna take an athlete sport and end it, so we can fund this 3rd string defensive lineman over here scholarship. Does anything sound more anti-educational than that, to take from one kid opportunity to another? I would like to hear those decision makers' rationale. Then I'll be fine.
Well, unfortunately, the rationale is probably just money. I mean, it is. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the answer. That's the. Now, I want to ask you this because you've done a good job. When the day you announce your retirement, the mayor of the city comes up to you and goes, "Scotty," and just celebrates you. All the support that you've had in the city of Louisville, how that's got to be overwhelming.
It's humbling.
Yeah.
No, it's humbling. And the reason, you grow up on Central Avenue. I went to Fraser Elementary. 3 years ago, I went over to Fraser and I addressed their 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. They had just moved from being the lowest performing school in the entire state to 3rd from the lowest. And we had a celebration. I sit in those classrooms. I went to Southern Junior High, then on to Iroquois. How does this happen? How does this happen? I always think of teachers, and I go back to I made the 9th grade basketball team. I went to junior high, which was 7, 8, 9. I made the 9th grade basketball team as an 8th grader. Now, that was a big thing. Only 2 of us made it, Mike Shaw and myself. That was a big thing. Our basketball coach, a gentleman named Vernon Wohl, was as classy individual as there's ever. He was perfect and wanted us to really look great on the day of a game. So we had to wear a tie to school on the day of a game. That's a Southern Junior High, right? It's located right there off the Waterston Expressway. You see it when you ride by, right between 3rd Street and Taylor Boulevard. It's right there. Well, not having a dad since I was 9, my mother ran her own successful, incredible Davenport's Beauty Salon. What kind of tie did I have? I only have one. I had a clip-on tie from my dad's funeral. It's the only tie I had. Well, you know, when I was 9 years old, if I wore that clip-on tie as an 8th grader, that wouldn't look very good, would it? Yeah. So my mother goes to the local department store and buys me 2 ties. Now what's my problem?
Don't know how to tie it.
No. She's from Greensboro, Kentucky. Yeah. Her brothers were all in the service. I mean, on that tie. So I have to go to Coach Wohl and admit, what am I going to do? And he meets me in school an hour early, sneaks me in the building, takes me to his classroom, ties the tie around his neck, takes it off, puts it around mine, buttons everything up, ties the tie perfect, because he wore one. It's the most perfect ever. Well, the next step taught me how to tie a tie. All right, we stand here today. Think back of where I've worn a tie to. We'll start with my mother's funeral. Let's go back to Final Four, state championship, national championship, Bellarmine, press conference getting hired at Louisville, sons' weddings, my own wedding, proms. Just say where I've worn a tie to. Think of that. And not one time have I ever worn a tie that I did not look up and just thank Coach Wohl for teaching me how to tie a tie when I was in the 8th grade.
See, it's funny that you said that, because Coach Combs, my mentor, he taught me how to tie a tie also. And
that's amazing.
What's really neat is, though, so I kind of cheated for the first 6-8 games. I would just loosen it up because I was like, I'm never going to be able to tie it again.
And just slip it off your neck?
Slip it over. Yeah, oh yeah. So I kind of cheated. But Coach Combs, he taught me how to tie a tie. Because at Oldham County, when I played at Oldham County, it was the same way. It was, you slacks, shirt tucked in, tie, no tennis shoes. We weren't even allowed to wear tennis shoes with our, and I was like, Coach, I mean, we're just playing basketball. He goes, that's not what it's about.
You think about it. You think about it. Like I go back and you mentioned how do you, the mayor, and you react to these people, the former players' reactions, so I met with the team at 7:00 on a Sunday night. I talked 7 minutes, and then I literally spent all night reaching out to every former player, coach, administrator that I had a contact on so they could hear it from me. 6:40 the next morning, it was Coach Patino's turn, and we probably went 40 minutes, and boy, he was in the middle of that great run they were on, and he was on one. Yeah. And he was, these things. But the reaction from players about Coach, remember when you used to say, fill in a blank? And they go, I say it to my kids every day. It was incredible. It was incredible. You mentioned the mayor. What means the most is he didn't have to do that. He was a student at Ballard, when I was there. But, I mean, he didn't have to do that. Some of the reactions that I've had, what means the most is the people who didn't have to say that, who didn't have to go out of their way to write a card or to send me a private message, or they didn't have to do that, but they did. That probably means the most. They didn't have to.
And I mean, you're just Scotty from the South End. I mean, it's just,
I know.
And what one thing that I think one of the greatest compliments, Coach Calipari says, I'm not playing Bellarmine. Why would I want to play Bellarmine? I mean, when you hear coaches, that are Hall of Famers saying, we're not playing Bellarmine. And the thing of that was, I'm thinking, you guys don't want to play Bellarmine right now, and they're going through a struggle. You really didn't want to play Bellarmine 10 years ago.
It is a heck of a comment. But like you bring up Coach Calipari, we played them 2 years ago, and in the middle of the press conference, he just went on to a tirade about the transition rule and us not being able to play in the tournament. And when I stopped him afterwards, I said, Coach, you didn't have to do that. That's why it means so much more. He goes, I did what's right. Those players deserve that. I said, I looked him right now, and I said, thank you. Think about that. When he was at Memphis, I was at Louisville. He's at Kentucky, I'm at Louisville. Think of that. And he's doing that for me. And I'm like, wow, he's been pretty strong about that.
Yeah, he must kind of like me a little bit.
That was, and the coaching journey and some of the reactions of the people that I've been fortunate enough to coach with. Again, I don't say coach for, coach with. It's impossible for me not to sit here and like, what would Coach Crum think?
Yeah,
It's impossible for me not to think, what would Coach Jones think? Coach Jerry Jones. It's impossible not to think that.
Well, speaking of Coach Crum, when you were at Louisville, and then, like I said, Coach Crum had everything rolling. You're just soaking it all in. You're living the journey. Grew up a few blocks from campus, and it's full circle. But when they make the transition and you stay on, and you get to work with Coach Pitino, and that progresses. When Louisville went through their struggles a few years ago, there was a big fan base that says, give Scotty a call. Give Scotty a call. One thing that I can say from the outside looking in, I could tell that the University of Louisville struggling hurts you inside. And I could see that a little bit, this year at Bellarmine, because you had so many young guys, so many injuries. I don't know if any team in America had as many injuries as you in the last 2 years.
Well, we asked for the exemption to miss 2 games because we only had six players. Yeah. Like back during COVID, if you only had 6, you didn't have to play. Right. Yeah. So we asked, what's the difference? Yeah. No, we dressed 8 players. I never dressed 8 players in my life. Aaron's high school on. I never played a game with 8 dressed players. You bring up Coach Crum, Coach Pitino. I will give you this. The day that Coach Crum retired, I'm the first in the office, and he comes in, and he had a lot of bounce to his step. And he said, and literally 30 seconds, my landline shows up, and Coach Crum, I'm saying, yes, sir. He said, come in here, please. And I run it, just next to office. I go right in there. I said, yes, sir, Coach. He goes, I'm going to retire today at 3 o'clock. And I look at him, and I said, Coach, are you okay? He said, yes, Scotty, I'm fine. I have spent 2-3 days. I've spoken to a lot of very, very close friends of mine, people I've got total faith in, that there's a tremendous life out there that I need to enjoy. And at that time, recruiting was changing. All the summer recruiting was becoming, you could go out all summer, and, he had his things. He was very passionate about hunting, fishing, golf, travel, which I totally understood. I said, are you okay? He said, yes, sir, I am. And I said, Coach, you've earned it. You deserve this. And he looked at me, and he leaned across his desk, and he said, how can you say that? Russ and Doug are 7 and 9 years old, 8 and 10. How can you say that? I said, Coach, if I said no, I want you to stay just because of me, I'm violating the biggest rule you've ever taught, and that's to be unselfish. I would be selfish if I said that to you. He looked me in the eye and said, that's why I love you so much, and that's why you'll be a great coach no matter what happens. And I walked out of his office. That was it. That's how long that conversation lasted. I ran to Doug was at Cameron, Russ was at Ballard. I got him out of class so they heard it from me that everything's fine. Do you want to leave? I'll sign you out of school. You can go sit in my office. No, we're going to stay here. Everything's fine. So they heard from me. And then fast forward, take care of the players. We were still playing 24/7. My office, my home, the dorm room, the locker room. I was there for those players. I was there every single day, no matter what they needed. Fast forward, Coach Pitino's hired. They're having the big celebration down at the International Convention Center. Helicopters are flying. They're flying, following his car. It looks like OJ.
Yeah.
They're following his path from Clark County Airport over to the plane. And I've got the players on a meeting room. And he comes in, and I'd met Coach Pitino. He recruited DeJuan Wheat, but we had interacted. I was DeJuan's high school coach, and he said, I said, yes, sir, I've got the players that are right here in this room for you. He said, Sky, that's unbelievable. Thank you very much. I appreciate you doing that. Walk in there. And I said, guys, the new head basketball coach at University of Louisville, he doesn't need an introduction, Coach Rick Pitino. He turns to me and says, Scotty, could you please excuse yourself? So what do you think I thought, Bob?
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, I'm done now too.
Yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, okay, well.
So I stay around, he does all the press, all the hook, blah, and I get in the car and drive home, and I'm done. And we go like the next 10 days, and no matter what it was, player meeting on the floor, individual instruction, no matter what it was, I'd have them ready. Well, all of a sudden, it's day 10, 11, and we're doing individuals at 7 o'clock, and it's 6:15. I've already got them on the floor, loose, taped, stretched, ready to go. He comes in like 6:40 and said, Sky, step over in the coach's locker room.
You're like, well, he's going to let me go now.
Here we go.
Yeah.
And I walk in, and he says, I've never kept a coach from our previous staff. I said, yes, sir, I'm aware of that. And I broke his train of, you hear me get a little amped up, you can understand it. And he broke his train of thought. He goes, what? But he goes, what? I said, Coach, you're at Kentucky. I'm at Louisville. I knew everything. I've read every book. I've listened to every radio show. I mean, you're the bitter enemy. I knew everything. He started laughing. He goes, I'm going to keep you. And we go out, individual instruction. We go up after 2 groups, and we go up 3 stories up to the back entrance to the offices, get to the 3rd floor. And he turns to me and he says, to tell you how thorough Rick Pitino is, he goes, now you lost your dad very early. How were you? You were, and I said, I was 9 years old, Coach. He said, your sons are 8 and 10, Russ and Doug? And I'm like, yes, sir. Yes. He said, name me one thing. He's standing at the doorway, waiting to open the door, and he goes, name me one thing at 9 your dad ever saw you do. And he starts reeling things off, 100 miles an hour. Did he see you get married, graduate from college, coach Ballard to a state championship? Did he see you get hired by Coach Crum? Did he just rattling off things? Get a degree? Did he see you do that? Well, no, I was 9. And he goes, well, you're going to turn this program around. You go see the strength coach, and your dad died of a heart attack, and you get yourself in shape. So you see your sons do great things. I went to Reagan Hall, 1 year to the date, lost 79 pounds. My body fat went from 24.8 to 7.9%. And now, as I sit here in front of you at 69 years old, think of what Doug's 37, Russ is 39. Think what I've seen them do. Married, multiple degrees, positions, advancement, promotions, on and start families, on and on and on. And you think that man doesn't impact lives. But he knew all that. He knew all that. How did he know all that? Now, the end of this story is that 1 year, losing 79 pounds, he went all over this community. And people would bring it up. He took credit for it.
Yeah,
but I didn't see him on the treadmill 5 every morning.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, we're doing this. Like, we're? Hold on a second. What do you mean we're?
He was kidding me the morning I called him that Monday morning. I wanted him to hear from me. I wanted to thank him. And he said, how far are you running today? I said, I'm only going 3 today because I've got a quite full day in that. He goes, you're unbelievable. Because he does the elliptical. He goes, you're sick. You're absolute. I said, it's your fault.
Yeah, you're running through the Highlands.
I said, it's your fault. And he just laughed. I mean, but to have people impact your life like that is a motivator to everyone. If it's Kevin Willer, if it's Mick Cronin, if it's Fred Hina, if it's Kenny Klein. I mean, I don't care who it is. They didn't have to be coaches, managers. You go on and on and on, and you think about it. And he and Coach Crum were the two. Here's the thing nobody knows about them. They thought the game should be played exactly the same way from a fundamental standpoint. Exactly. But taught it 180 degrees different.
Yeah.
One was a math major, very analytical, very, and this other one's this high-strung Italian going 800 miles, but from a fundamental standpoint, the same way. But the one thing they don't know, and I will take this from learning from, and it's not running a tricky out-of-bounds play or a press offense, both of them, almost to a fault, were the most giving people I've ever been around in my life. And I don't mean just about money. I mean the giving of themselves, their time, the sacrifices away from their family. They were incredible. They really were. And just to be in their, to think and sit on that bench next to those guys. And the stories are endless, man.
Well, when you said they're the most giving people you've ever been around, it's funny that you say that, because that's what I say about Scotty Davenport. When people, when I started coaching, I said, Coach Davenport, he's at the King of the Bluegrass. He's at the LIT. I've seen him at AAU events. And it's not recruiting. He's just there because, Gardner said, hey, Coach, can you ride out and come visit the hospitality room?
No.
I've heard stories of there being kids in elementary school that had problems, and it's like, you've had a friend call, hey, Coach, we need you. You write up, hey, you need to get yourself straight. When you turn the reins over to Doug, how hard is it going to be? Are you going to come and watch games? No. Okay, that's what I was going to ask, because is it... Because you're just gonna let Doug figure it out. I mean, you can't.
No, my wife will come.
You're too geek to just.
No, my wife can come, and I will stay home and destroy the house when things don't go well. The TV, the walls, classes, furniture.
I've seen you and Doug have some interactions during timeouts before.
Oh, yeah.
So I can only imagine if you were sitting in the stands.
Now, and there will be a time. Now, I say this, and people said, "Well, why?" Well, I always meet with seniors as they approach, as they're in the middle of their junior year, about what are we going to do at your senior year. You got to be ahead of the game. And I mean, I tell the story. I met with Doug, and Doug made 7 Bs his entire career at Bellarmine. When I was in college, I wished I could have made 7 Bs. Yeah. And I said to him, I said, Doug, here we are, March, year from now, Wall Street, political science, law school, business, Wall Street. What do you, we got connections. What do you want to do? And he said, Dad, I'm going to be a basketball coach. And then, from there on, he becomes a graduate assistant under Chris Mack at Xavier with Pat Kelsey. Pat Kelsey hires him at the end of him being a GA at Winter, Pat's first job. On a Thursday, Doug moves from Cincinnati to Rock Hill, South Carolina. My wife drives up there. She packs his car, but everything else is loaded into a moving van, and off it goes to Rock Hill on a Thursday. Monday morning, 4 days later, 7:05, I get a call from Coach Patino. He's like, Scotty, again, another little Patino thing. That phone being 6 inches from your head, it just stays there forever.
Never.
I said, yes, sir, Coach. And he says, Scotty, I messed up. I said, what's going on? He goes, I should have already hired Doug. I got to have him. I said, well, Coach, he has a job. He goes, no, I'll call that coach. I'll make this right. I got to have him. He's going to do the video all by himself. Me and him, Coach, we're going to be good, Scott. I got to have him. Have him call me at 7:30. Hangs up.
You're like, okay.
I called Doug. I said, hey, man, what's going on? He goes, Dad, we had a recruit in last night. It was great. Dad, we did. And then he played with our guys. And I'm like, Doug. I said, Doug, you need to step outside. Are you around coaches? I said, yeah. I said, just say you got to go to the bathroom. Step out. You got to get out of there. I said, you got to call Coach at 7:30 sharp. He goes, Dad. I said, Doug, you got to call him. 7:35, Doug calls him back and goes, he just hired me. He moves back on the following Monday. He moved 3 times in 8 days. On the following Thursday. Yeah. This is Monday. On Thursday, he moves back to Louisville. So he moves from Cincinnati to Rock Hill to Louisville 3 times in 8 days. And they win the national championship in 13, and it was just him and Coach. And I told him, I said, Doug, your life just ended. It's going to be you and him. I mean, Saturday nights, it's over. Bank your money. He's going to live in the dorm. I said, you don't have any expenses. You got Mom's hand-me-down car. Just get ahead of this game. And he's pursued it ever since. And here he is. And, he's excited. And I wrote him a very emotional letter and left it right on my desk. It's now his desk when I left.
So, how hard was it to clean out your office? Because we're sitting here at Bellarmine, top 3 basketball arenas in the country.
No, it was. It's your life. You just see everything. I don't know why I was like this. I referenced earlier that I made the 9th grade team as an 8th grader. And the old spiral notebooks. So I bought one. And I wrote down every single practice, what we did. 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and the 2 years as a walk-on JV player at Louisville. My sons read them, and my grammar changes, my spelling changes, my penmanship changes. They are hilarious. I don't know why it struck me like that. I don't know why. But it did, and I'm forever thankful. But, I mean, leaving that office and what I have at home, I have a program at home. We're recruiting a phenomenal young man named Cade Unsell. His dad is Will Unsell, who's the head coach at Warren Central. Will Unsell is Wes Unsell's nephew. His dad and Wes Unsell were brothers. And the morning we're trying to get him to commit. I mean, Cade is when MVP of the state tournament. They win. He's a great kid.
Has a jump shot out of this world.
No, he's incredible. Yeah. I walk into our breakfast that morning. We're trying to, close the deal, and his dad understands the Unsell name in this community. And I produced the 1965 program with Wes Unsell's autograph on it that I had from Freedom Hall. I said, look, it's right here. And I mean, it just took me 1 minute. I have kept that stuff organized. I have it all. It's just part of my life. It just is. I have. It's amazing. I have a basketball signed by the Pan Am team I helped Coach Crum with in 80, and see the names on that.
Well, let me ask you this. What's next for Scotty Davenport? I mean, wait, you can if you're not going to come to the gym, I mean, what is next?
Well, when we, after we won the ASUN in 22, they extended my contract, and part of the contract we had a long meeting about, it was very difficult, Coach Crum's transition. It was very difficult on the university. It was very difficult on the personnel. It was very difficult. I said, let's get ahead of this. Doug played here. He lives not even a half mile from the front door. He's passionate about this place. Let's do this so we have a plan. And we did it right then. Part of that plan was, if desired, I would have an opportunity to stay within the university and help the university. And actually got a meeting Monday about it. We had a phone conversation today trying to get the word out, because the challenge now is I don't think education has ever been valued less than it is right now. And we've got to get that we've got to flip that. Education has to be, I heard a saying years ago, money doesn't cure poor. We all know people that, actors, athletes, who won, made millions and don't have a thing, right?
Yeah.
Why? They don't have education. Lottery winners, and they don't have a thing. Yeah. Why? No education. So money doesn't cure poor. Education does. And if we've got to get that word out that these people, and like, one thing I am going to do, I don't even know how to do this. I know this, in 20 years, we've had 3 players that failed to have a degree. 2 of them played professionally, 2 of them are still playing. I want to add up how many total degrees. Like I mentioned, last year we had 3 seniors leave here with 5 degrees. I want to add up how many total degrees. Bellarmine has a 5-year master's program, and we were very aggressive. If a player had a medical injury, a redshirt year, or if they had a COVID year, or if they had just wanted a redshirt as in terms of developmental. If you're in a 5-year business program, they were leaving here with their MBAs or Masters in Business Administration. So my argument on college athletics is, why can't you do both? Why not? And that, we've never had a semester. This will be 40 semesters. We've never had under a 3-0 as a team, ever.
That's astonishing. That is astonishing.
Yes, at a very high level school.
Yeah. It's not like it's easy to get in there. Yeah.
And my goal, and I see this quoted from players should use the game of basketball. Don't let it use them.
It's funny you said that, because when I was coaching, we had a kid that went on and played at Dawson, could do anything you wanted to. Had a rough going as a and I told him, I said, the only thing I'm ever going to tell you is use basketball to help you.
Yes.
Don't let basketball use you. And that
the motivation, the attention to detail, the passion, the dedication it takes to be successful in basketball can help you the rest of your life. Think of this. So we had four freshmen this year. 4 freshmen, 18 years old. They are going to work some form or fashion in the real world. I don't care if I hope everyone who plays in the NBA, they're still going to work somewhere.
Yeah.
Past the year 2070. Do the math now. Do the math. 27, that's 45 years now. They're 18, they're 63. 2070. Think of that.
Yeah.
That gets real, doesn't it?
Yeah, that gets real.
So that's the goal. And that's what you should do as a teacher.
I don't want to keep you all night because I could stay in here.
Yeah.
We could do this all night. Your wife's probably ready to kill us now. She's like, Coach, or as she says, Scotty or Hun, or I mean, you said you was going to be home. I mean, basketball's over. You're still out BSing about basketball. But one thing I want to ask, is there ever a chance that we see Scotty say, you know what? I'm going to coach the grandkids. I'm going to do a YMCA league. Is there any chance we get anything like that? Because we could sell tickets for thousands of dollars to watch you. The way you interact with officials, I would love to see you.
So we have a 6-year-old granddaughter, Ren, a 16-month-old grandson, Jake Scott. No, but I will give you.
Because if they ask, you can't say no.
Ren's already got that figured out. I'll give you a reference point. So Ren's in kindergarten. She was weighing 46.2 pounds, and she joined the cross-country team in kindergarten. And I looked at my son. I said, Russ, what are you doing? He said, Dad, she loves it. The practices are great. They have popsicles. They run. I said, okay. So now it's time to have a meet. They have a meet out at Veteran Park. I go as a grandparent. I'm coming from practice, and I mean, I've never seen the amount of people. It's unbelievable. And I'm just like, what is going on? She's in the category of K through second grade, kindergarten all the way up to second graders. She weighs 46.2 pounds. Run against she's 5 years old.
Yeah.
Run against a second grader. And I'm thinking, who's 8?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are they doing? So I positioned myself about 30 yards down from the starting line. In other words, they're going to start and run past me. And they put them they got painted slots, and every school gets in their slots. There's 275 K through second graders. And I'm just looking around. I'm like,
what is going on?
Yeah, like this is, and this gentleman pulls up in a golf cart, and he's going to lead them. And the course is well marked, and everybody's going to follow, but you could have, they're K through second grade.
Yep.
He's going to lead them.
They could say, we're going, and then they give every direction.
I'm like, this is, so I'm just watching. I'm just being a coach. I'm like, my fact is, they're out there doing it. Nobody's on a device. Nobody's looking at a screen, and they're having the time of their life. And they run boys and girls, boys. And, I mean, it's unbelievable. So he pulls up. I'm like, okay. And the person steps out of the golf cart to start the race. And they've got a starter's pistol. And they're like, mark, set, boom. The companion jumps in the cart, and the cart goes to lead them along the course. They're running 3/4 of a mile. And they go by me.
At 5 years old.
5 years old. 5 years old. Yeah. And they go by me. And I do a double take, and I'm like, okay, NBA, NFL, MLB, the coach of the year just rolled by me. I don't forget college basketball, forget college football. That guy's going to be the coach of the year, and there he goes. He had a speaker, had to be 3 feet high, anchored in the back of that golf cart, blaring Taylor Swift. And those little girls are chasing after that golf cart. I said, that's the greatest coach I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's got it figured out.
No, they were. You belong to me. Taylor Swift just, or shake it off. It's just blaring, and there they go. And I'm like overcome, just laughing. And people are like, Coach, what are you doing here? I said, well, that's my granddaughter. He's 46 pounds. I don't know. Russ, my oldest, gets me all the time about that. He goes, "You're going to coach Jake. You're going to." I'm like, "No, I'm not coaching Jake."
Because I don't know if you could take Papa, Grandpa, whatever. I don't know if you could take that to Coach Scotty Davenport, Coach Davenport. I don't know if you could transition. I've seen you transition to I'm focused coaching this team to I'm going to rip the official's head off.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know if you could do that transition.
Rick Van Hoos, I'll give him a shout out and give him credit. WLKY went back and found a story that he did on Father's Day one year. They used to have a Sunday night sports extra. He did a story on Father's Day. It was Derek Smith coaching Nolan. Fast forward, would end up coaching at Louisville, playing at Duke, playing at NBA. Coach Crum and his son Scott. It was myself coaching Russ and T-ball down at River Road at the water tower. Yeah. And he did this story, and all of us coaching our kids, and he played the story when I retired.
So how?
I mean, that is, and coaching T-ball, my comment to him, if I can get them to face the right way, I've considered it a success.
Yeah, it was a good day because we're all looking at the batter.
Yes, if they don't run to third, if they run to first, second, third home, and they face and don't get, no, my fear was they were not going to, if they're picking dandelions or something getting hit in the head with the ball. No, that was my goal. And they were saying how humbling it was. Here's this aspiring coach. Derek's working with Nolan, Coach Crum's working with Scott, and I'm working with Russ.
So, 20 years of development, 426 wins, the 2022 ASUN champion, four-time Final Four finalist, 2011 national champion, state champion, five-time Great Lake Tournament champion. The list goes on and on and on. Coach Scotty D, I really appreciate the time, the energy, the effort, not only you put in this interview, that you put in our city, that you put in our community, and just so you know, I know you've impacted all your players' lives. As a former coach, we always have kids come back and say, "Coach this, coach that," but you impacted the city of Louisville, the community, and thank you so much for what you've done for our city. You will never know how much you are valued.
Well, let me close by saying I'll share my last words as a coach. So we had spring break right after our season. Our players came back. We had a meeting at 7 o'clock Sunday night. Again, I mentioned 7 minutes. And I said, I want you to look at me right now, harder than you've ever looked at me in your life. And I've already told them I'm retiring. And I got kids leaning forward. They are focused. And I said, here's your goal now. If you get to this point in your life of where I am right now, I've coached 47 years. And if that door opens right now and somebody came in here and said, "Coach, you have one wish, whatever you want, we're going to grant your wish. Coach, you got it." If you can utter the words I'm going to utter right now, when you're my age, at this point in your life, you will be a success. And I said, that door opens, and they said, "What's your wish?" I just wish I could do every second of it again, right now. Yeah. That was my last words as a coach.
And I totally get that.
100%.
Because kid grew up in the South End.
I did.
Pretty much lived on campus before living on campus was cool. This is the guy we're talking about. Jumped the fence, went to the figure eight racing. I.e., we're a racing podcast. My dad grew up racing figure eight. You didn't even know this. Because I wanted this to be about you, but my dad raced figure eight at the Fairgrounds Motor Speedway. It
wasn't Andy Hampton or Jesse Baird.
No, it was Del Puckett. So
okay.
he was a little bit younger. But see, Andy Hampton, Jesse Baird.
No, I knew them all.
How
can I remember those names?
Well, I'll tell you how, because that was what everybody did on Friday and Saturday.
Andy Hampton, Jesse Baird, Dave Comer.
Dave Comer lives 2 doors down from me. And I've been trying to get Dave Comer to do my podcast forever, and he won't do it.
How can I remember those. There was a par 3 course there then at the fairgrounds, and we walked There was Freedom Hall, there was the baseball, AAA Stadium, the U of L Stadium, the figure eight race on Friday, the ovals on Saturday, the demolition derbies on holidays. No, I do. I remember.
We grew up the same way there in the South End. And funny story, right before I get off here, but you talked about you snuck into all the U of L games. When you guys were on your big coaching career, I worked all the U of L games. My uncle, he's the one that runs Jefferson Special Security, did all the security, all the parking. I've done parking for the fair. I've done all that at the fairgrounds. You want to talk about the fairgrounds? I can tell you places at the fairgrounds you may not even know.
I had a Ballard team one time. We were going on a trip and we were raise money. And our Ballard team, we worked parking for the fair. Third week of August, hot as could be. And I mean, it's a wonder I did not get arrested and charged with child abuse. Because they make them, once you work, they would never let you leave.
Oh, yeah, no.
And I would go home and make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and soft drinks and drive the whole ring road and just drop them off to them all during the day. But we financed our trip.
I got good news for you. My wife still works for that company today. She's the one that does all the scheduling. She runs that. And every year during the fair, unfortunately, fortunately, I always say, I'm not doing it again. I always get drug out at least a day or two. Making that trip around Ring Road, making sure kids have water.
And I'll call them out. One of those guys that was out there doing that to finance that trip, we were going to San Diego to plan a trip, was Allen Houston, would go on and be an NBA All-Pro.
So
he's out there parking.
Yeah, they're parking cars. I said, I've seen that guy before. But here we go. Thanks again, Scotty Davenport. Comes full circle. Louisville South End doing big things. We really appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
There you go, guys. That was our interview, our deep dive interview with Coach Scotty Davenport of the Bellarmine Knights. I want to first off start off by saying thank you, Scotty, for taking your time, being gracious. Thank you for Rick Walden, who helped me, who reached out and did some legwork for me. Thank you for that. As like I said, Coach Davenport was gracious with our time. He's doing interviews all over the country, having meetings with Coach Patino and he's got so much going on, and he was so gracious to sit down and talk with us and go over, the years of basketball knowledge and what it took to survive and his upbringing, his South End roots. Really fascinating. Scotty Davenport and I, we kind of grew up in the same neighborhood, and not that a lot of people know that I coach, but not like I had any success like Scotty Davenport by any means. But, just you learn so much from your neighborhood, from where you're from, about working hard and, being successful. But we really appreciate Scotty for taking this time. And guys, I know a lot of people that's listening to this is going to be your first time hearing us at the Trading Sliders. We are a fun podcast that each and every week we tell stories of guys all over the racing community, older gentlemen, down to young kids that's striving to do something they love. And, we encourage you to check us out. Check out some of our other shows. We do some race results and stuff. I'm going to let you guys know. Some of this stuff, you'll have no clue what we're talking about. If you're basketball people, you have no clue whatsoever. But the interviews, our deep dive conversations, they're pretty fascinating for even non-race fans. Just, pulling back the curtains, shedding light. Everybody that's got a story. Everybody's got a story. And we're doing our part to positively promote and get the story out there. So we really appreciate if you would check out a couple more shows. If you like what we're doing here on this, with the coaches episode, leave a comment. Leave us a comment, shoot me a message. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. So shoot me a comment if you like it. Maybe we can do some more of these. Please check us out. We got a Trading Sliders Facebook page. If it happens in the racing world, we talk about it. And same way with like Coach Davenport. He threw out he dropped a bombshell on me at the end of the interview, throwing out some racing names of guys that we all in the Louisville area grew up watching. And Jesse Barrett and Andy Hampton. I said, Coach, if I knew, we were indulged in this, we would have carried on a conversation about that. So you may get a part 2 with Coach Scotty Davenport. May get a race trip type deal, and then we'd come back and do a part 2 or something. But thank you guys. Check out our sponsors: Diesel Boy LLC, Kentucky Clutch and Performance, Speed Decals, and DO Handyman and Repair. They help us get up and down the road and get these interviews. They help bring these interviews to you each and every week. And thanks again for the basketball special edition, Bracket Buster, spontaneous in the middle of the week. Thank you. Until next time, we'll be trading sliders.